So two old fools messing around with something they can't possibly understand.
Wow. Now it's a song.
Hello, I'm Robin Vincent, and welcome to this special Molten Music Technology broadcast here from the Thomann Synth Reaktor. I'm here with Marc Doty. Doty? Oh, I see, I've already stuffed that up. It doesn't really matter.
Normal.
I found this geezer hanging around the car park. Apparently he has something to do with synthesizers. And so I thought I'd bring him in. And because we're here to play with synths, I thought let's start with something huge. Something like the Moog One.
He thought we should start off easy.
Yeah, start off easy. You know, just to ease ourselves into this whole idea of playing with stuff. I thought, well, sod it, let's do that. Let's have this one. So here we are, and we're here just to chat about it, because I don't know anything about it. I've had 2 minutes with it, right? And it makes like big sounds. Because you know I've got a Mother 32 at home. You know, we squeak, a bit of noise. And yeah, I have fun with that. But this has like 20 times more knobs than that does. It's a ridiculous looking thing, but also a fabulous looking thing. So we thought we would sit here and talk about it for half an hour, 40 minutes, you know, whatever time that we're allowed, in order to get stuck into a bit. And having an expert along is got to be worthwhile, I thought. But tell us a tiny bit about yourself.
Well, I have a little bit of Moog experience, so I wanted to do the one. I have my own viewers who are demanding that I do the one, and I was like, well, I don't know. So my first experience of it was, again, like today, for about 2 minutes, and I was overwhelmed with excitement about it. But yes, the fact that I have extensive Moog experience, I don't think is going to help me a whole lot with this, because it is so substantial, and it's got so much functionality. It's kind of overwhelming.
But this is the great thing, because you can mess up completely in this video and then do a more seasoned professional
This is my
video
practice video.
yourself later on, which is awesome. So yeah, we can mess about in here, because people who watch my channel are completely aware of how I bumble my way through things. And so this is a perfect bumbling opportunity. So what do we know about it so far? Well, it came out, we first saw it, I believe, at NAMM. And everyone has been expecting a big fat polysynth from Moog, and they delivered as far as we can work out. It looks beautiful. It is as solid as it looks. I'm slightly disappointed that the panel doesn't hinge.
That would be cool.
Or if there's a matching lid that fits perfectly on the top. I don't believe there is. But it's an impressive machine.
It looks very much like, sitting in front of it, it's very much like the memory Moog, but it's different. It's like a optical illusion. My brain keeps trying to make it into a memory Moog and then going, no, there's a whole lot more going on here. Well, I wonder if we should poke through some of the presets.
Yeah, let's play some noises. And then we'll talk about it some more. So,
We have it set to this Diode Diva one. Which is interesting because it seems like kind of a Buchla reference. Selena Big Swirl.
So there's aftertouch, I think. Well, the point is it's polyphonic, so I'm automatically trying to press just one note at a time, which is nonsense. So it's big chords. Big sounds, yeah. So it has this central panel here, which seems to allow you to select all sorts of presets. So Annihilation Drone, then let's try that one.
That should be interesting. Thought I'd try and play something pretty for the Annihilation Drone.
Now, of course, we don't want to look as if we have no idea what we're doing, except for the fact we don't really have any idea what we're doing.
It has such a big, rich sound that I don't think has been really captured yet in what I've seen. And it really surprised me when I heard it through headphones, just how in the way that you would expect Moog would have an amazing, big, fat, warm polysynth, this is exactly that. And that's what, in the 2 minutes that I played it, I was like, oh my gosh, the sound of this is so, so gorgeous. And I can say that despite being intimidated by the computer in the middle of the thing.
Yeah, because you do, I mean, the way that I come in at hardware these days is that I like to have one knob per function. I like to be able to see the sound as well as hear the sound, if that makes sense. And as soon as you introduce this kind of preset system, all of that gets thrown out of whack. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, a difference in way of working. So. I mean, there's an awful lot going on in that patch, but I don't even know where to start to think about adjusting or tweaking at this stage. It's just you're sort of living in what it's giving you.
Well, Nick did give us the clue to creating an initialized patch,
yes.
So maybe we should try that. Did it work? It did.
There we go. You have 3 oscillator sections here. Each of them has a little display. Each of them has got an octave range and a frequency range. Beat frequency, no idea what that is, but that sounds like an interesting thing. You've got a wave angle, so you can change the angle of the waveform itself, which you might be able to see on this tiny little screen here. But the other thing he said is that if you press this little corner button, it then appears on the big screen.
Right.
Look at that, look at that.
One of the things that's so great about this is that it's so easy to jump for the filter cutoff knob, but when you have a synthesizer with continually variable wave shapes, you can get your own exciting timbres without having to rely on the dependency generating filter cutoff knob.
You see, that's interesting because people like myself, the filter that's kind of all we know. you have a synth that makes a sound, you filter, because that's your natural movement, I think, through a synthesizer. Whereas yourself, because you've been working with Buchla, they do things differently over there. It's not something that I can explain, I don't think. But the shorthand for it in my very hackneyed way is that sort of Moog is about subtractive synthesis, about filtering stuff, whereas Buchla is about adding stuff, adding harmonics and overtones to sound. That's the smallest way I can compartmentalize it in my own head. And so, whereas I naturally fall straight onto a filter cutoff, it's interesting to not do that and to find yourself fiddling with synthesis in a different way.
When you get more complex wave shapes like this, you're actually adding harmonics. So it's actually becoming more complex. It's in a way kind of filtering, adding harmonics and taking them away all within the oscillator itself, which is fun and timbrally interesting.
Well, I don't know what you call it. You call it tipping it from one side to the other, doing something.
But it almost sounds like you're doing something with a filter.
It does.
And since you can route the LFOs to control the wave angle, you can...
Exactly going to... Look at that. There's a thing. I'd really like to see that represented in the little screen, but it doesn't do that. Oh, I see.
Right, that would be...
So there's a sample and hold.
That's really great because the higher frequency random points sort of bring out the higher frequency content in the patch, which is cool.
See, I feel like we created a patch. We made a noise. Look at that. Wow.
We're great at this.
Yeah, we are. And that's just one oscillator.
Yeah,
that's just a single oscillator doing its thing.
Dare we bring in yet another oscillator? Oh, we have to direct it to a filter. Oh, tritone. That's fantastic.
So is beat frequency then kind of a slight detuning?
Yeah.
So we could stick one of those to there. A little bit of pulse width modulation.
I am smiling self-satisfiedly because we've created such a great patch. No, I mean it sounds good. You can tell a great synthesizer when a very basic patch sounds really, really good, like especially tonally like this. And I've noticed over here that you can direct the oscillators to either or both of the filters, because there are actually two filters.
So you've got a state variable filter and a ladder filter. A ladder filter rings a bell and goes, that's the Moog filter. I guess state variable means it can be low pass, high pass, and band pass and such like, yeah?
And typically they're 12 decibel per octave, but I don't know if that's true on this one. So that's kind of the low pass filter. And that's the low pass filter in the state variable filter. Ooh, a nice notch. Interesting band pass. Yeah, that's really interesting. And it appears we have a mix where you can mix between them. Wow.
That's too many filters. Does that button bring anything over here that tells us anything?
We should have been looking at that the whole time. Wow.
So yeah, these little triangle buttons on the corner of each section, they transform the middle bit into whatever it is you're looking at. So we press this one over here and it gives us information on the filters, and look, it animates it and stuff. So that's helpful. I mean, I find any kind of visual indication enormously helpful whenever playing any kind of synth. It's like with earlier I was playing with the mini-log, and that has got that little screen as well. And similar idea, because I can see something happening, it somehow reconfirms it in my head, because I don't know whether I have the ears or the experience to really know, is something actually, am I doing something and what does that mean? Whereas anything which tells me, which demonstrates and visually shows that to me, I find that just enormously helpful.
I feel like the more this happens, because a lot of people with the mini-log originally were like, well, is that information really useful? But I think it can be useful. It just hasn't been useful as much yet because we don't have wave shape indicators on synthesizers. But the more that's sitting there showing you what you're hearing, the more you're going to identify that with what you're hearing, and perhaps it will come to mean something in our sort of musical lexicon.
Yeah, I mean, we were having this conversation, funny enough, earlier about how a lot of synthesis is done in your head. You have to know what's going on in order to understand what's going on behind the knobs, if that doesn't make any sense at all. Whereas, because you don't have any visualization, I mean, certainly when you start applying control voltage to any kind of parameter, the knob itself no longer functions as telling you what it is that it's pointing at, because it's no longer pointing at the thing, because you've stuck stuff in it which is moving the thing about. So you have to have that somewhere in the back of your head, and I'm terrible at that kind of malarkey, which is why I always seem so amazed when using a synthesizer, because there was no initial plan or body of knowledge behind moving something that I moved. But visual indications like this that just allow me to offload some of that information, so I don't have to be constantly thinking, oh, so what is the wave shape doing, and I'm trying to feel my way through it. I can see, and that's enormously useful. Enormously useful. Oh, look, I've made a square wave again.
Clear.
Oh, we've got number 3 in now. Oh, that's nasty.
Actually, let's hear the sync on it. I don't know what it's syncing to. That information isn't given on the panel, so I don't know, but it's syncing to one of the other oscillators. And that's a pretty cool sync sound, so yeah. Oh, I have to try something. I just thought of something. There, you spend how much this costs on a synthesizer so that you can have this polyphony, and yet you can defeat it with the mono button. That is very satisfying.
There's a noise section here. It has 6 different types of noise.
This is the most complex noise section I've ever seen. And so you can probably modulate the color mix so you can get movement within the noise itself. If you applied like a sample and hold to that, you could probably do kind of drummy stuff with it. Oh wow. Red purple's my favorite.
So what does the color mean? Does the color mean anything?
It does. It's the it's a way to indicate the frequency content that's present in the sound. So like white is everything. Red has I can't remember which. Is red dark? Yeah, red has less upper content and more lower frequency content. I've never seen purple before, but I know blue is really heavy on the high content. So yeah.
So maybe that's what that's supposed to be about. Yeah.
So they've kind of covered the whole
No, hey,
good pun. But like we have dark and everything, dark and bright, everything and bright. So kind of the whole. Is there another metaphor I can use?
Yeah.
It's that radio that's AM radio between channels. That elusive AM radio between channel sound you've been looking for.
So what you need to do is arpeggio, don't you? You need to turn that thing on.
There we go. I was afraid to touch the arpeggio, so I'm glad
It's
you
got to
did.
be a hold on somewhere. The man said that. I'm sure there was, but it doesn't matter. I'll just hold it down. It's like 2 old fools messing around with something they can't possibly understand.
Wow. Now it's a song.
Yeah. Play with the filters, man.
Oh, we have a lot of different filter slopes on the ladder filter. Wow. There's a lot to do with this thing.
Oh, there's a master clock. It looks to me like the sort of synthesizer you could lose yourself in very easily. You could just set something on, and then you've got. I mean, you could spend a day on this section, and then the next day you could start playing with this bit.
Easily.
And then you discover what this does, or that bit, or
And
this one.
I don't know if I should point this out right now, but there's also effects. Dare I turn them on?
Yeah, go for it. Oh yeah, the effects are from Eventide, aren't they? They're I've got the black hole plugin from Eventide, which is an extraordinary thing. As well as the Euro DDL thing I played with. Is that Eventide? No, I can't remember now. Yeah, no, I think it is. And it's got a whole bunch of those built into the end of the chain. Nice.
Now I've created something sad, I think. But luckily there's a button that makes the sadness go away.
So how are you feeling about it so far, Mark? Is it living up to expectations?
Literally, it's like the truest professional polyphonic analog in the sense that you have so much control over so many factors, and then on top of it, it's polyphonic. This is like, I would put it on the level of like a Moog modular in the sense like you are responsible for the sound that you create, and you can create pretty much anything you would ever want to. And I'm not just talking about like famous synth sounds. Like you can actually do full-on sound design and, you know, in-depth synthesis with this thing, which I think is evident in a lot of like the presets, which are so big they sound more like they're coming from a, like, and I don't mean this tone-wise, I mean this complexity-wise, a polysynth from the 90s or something. Like, just see sounds that are all over the place with all kinds of things happening.
Yeah.
It's not something you typically hear with an analog polysynth. It's kind of terrifyingly exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you expect to be able to play a bit of Van Halen to start with, but you can't find that patch because there's other big stuff going on. It feels much more like some kind of workstation synth in some of those presets. I mean, I think it always raises questions with me about the purpose of presets. Are they there to show something off? Are they there to inspire? Because so often when you then initialize a patch, you seem to be so far away from that preset. It seems, how on earth did you get from here to there? And then you're sort of back into, oh, well, I'll take a preset and I'll tweak it a little bit as opposed to building something. But I think what's interesting, what we discovered so far, is that you can start building stuff very much like you would with modular, with patching stuff together, because it's so defined, and you see how it flows. I can take that into that, and I can put that into there. I mean, you're not having to deal with some kind of big modulation matrix where you're trying to fathom out what goes to where. You just press this and start turning the knob, and it starts to modulate. That sort of simplicity is refreshing in a big fat synth like this.
And just having these destination buttons, you decide where a thing goes, and apparently you can apply an envelope to a number of destinations. I don't know what that number is, but that makes it super fast and immediate. Just pressing the button and choosing, and it's going. And
you got 3 envelopes, as in dedicated envelopes: one for the filter, one for the amp, and one
for modulation.
For modulation, rather than trying to share or switch between them, you got 3 individual things that you can throw around to different places.
And it appears that you can loop the envelopes, which as a Buchla person, I have found is one of the most exciting things you can do with envelopes, is loop them and make them into, that makes all of them as modulation sources more like complex LFO than just a single shot envelope, which is really cool.
That's like what I do with the maths. Like the only thing I've able to do with the maths so far is to make a looping envelope, which is enormously good fun.
I wonder if I can. We might be able to make this happen.
Do we need to turn off the art?
It is happening. That's really cool. Interesting. Yeah, that's a potential for an incredible amount of control.
Definitely got some interesting movement going on there.
But that's not a thing you typically find on a polysynth, or on an analog polysynth for sure, so it's exciting. That is astounding. Wow.
So what's the first Moog you played with then? What's your Moog history?
I first played a Moog, Micro Moog, in...
Is that like a mini version of the Mini Moog?
It was. It's 1975 single oscillator synthesizer that was the discount, the cheap Mini Moog.
Oh, right.
But it was designed by Jim Scott, and it was really, really quite different from the Mini Moog, and really... I don't think it really gave you a Mini Moog sound, but its sound in itself was definitely a Moog sound, and it was the first Moog-related synthesizer to have variable wave shape, and it's one of my favorites. It was a great, great synthesizer.
Oh, interesting.
And then I got a Sonic 6, and a Mini Moog, and an Opus 3, and I've kind of owned or played all of them.
Well, I mean, my experience with Moog. I mean, when I worked at Turnkey back in the 90s and early 2000s, we were, I think, distributors for Moog in the UK. But that was when it was very untrendy. I mean, at the end of the 90s, no one was using analog synthesis. It was everything was digital. Everything was throwing itself at software, thinking that this is the new horizon. And so we would have a big, I think it was a Voyager. In the shop that was largely ignored, except for the couple of heads that would come in and spend their Saturday on it. But for everybody else, we ignored those sorts of things. We were too busy, being all goggly-eyed over Rebirth and Generator from Native Instruments and things like that. Going, cool, wow, this is the future, man. And it's been really interesting to see how it's come back on such a wave in recent times. It's an extraordinary thing. I mean, it was all about, we'd spent a lot of time talking about the Mooga Fuga pedals and things. That seemed to be where Moog was at, that or a really expensive synthesizer that nobody played anymore. So it's been I don't know, it must be a really weird place to work, to have been at that place where you see this rise and this enormous fall into sampling, into digital, into computers, and then how it's come out the other end. I don't think anyone would have predicted that stuff like this would become available as a new product, as a new development. It's an amazing thing, and it's testament to humanity, man. It's because we like touching things. It has to be that. It has to be the mouse has just been so inadequate in being such an extraordinary invention, which has allowed us to be so powerful with just minute movements. But we just want to touch stuff, just want to turn things,
have that interaction with the instrument. I knew that there was a Moog polyphonic coming, even as far back as like 2011, because I did a lot with Moog back then. And I was always skeptical, and I was always like, gosh, don't do it, because it's just not, how could you possibly make an analog polyphonic, especially after like Dave Smith output like 60 of them, like what could you possibly do that would validate your analog polyphonic as being necessary? Yes. And I have to say, they've done it. This is really something incredibly special, just in tone. And I think the tone thing is the thing that is really hard to nail, but Moog has always been good at it, and wow. But certainly the functionality is daunting.
There is that. Although, I mean, because the direct comparison, obviously, is to have 20 Behringer neutrons in a one big patch, all connected to each other. But, I think this pulls together the control slightly more elegantly than trying to faff around with 20 modular thingy-wingies. So, you know, there's space for this. Of course it's expensive. Of course it's nothing that I'm ever going to own, which is why I thought it'd be exciting to have a look at it, because I'll be able to give a perspective of just sort of awe, and I don't really, am I? But, you know, but that I think is what makes it interesting, because there's a sort of thing you could go to a music store to and play on for a bit and just enjoy yourself. Just give yourself an hour one afternoon, you know, hopefully when it's quiet, to plug yourself in and have a go, because it gives a dreamy sound, the sort of sound that you imagine a synthesizer should make, and that's extremely satisfying, I think.
What about this?
Sequencer.
I'm afraid of it.
Well, you see, I've got a Mother 32, in which case I already know that Moog sequencers are awful. But this doesn't have anything to do with this necessarily. But, yeah, all right then. Should we find another sound? So it says that it's on, right? So if you press, so you do a thing, if I press that, and
Okay.
then you press some things, then press some more things. I'll put a rest in. Then another rest. And a tie.
I don't know what will happen.
Cool, we nailed it. All right, here we go.
Oh, frequency modulation. Yeah, we haven't even done the ring mod yet.
Oh my God! All right, tell you what, right, next time when we do this, we'll just do this. We'll just sit here and start going, ah! Which I think is probably a good idea. Well, we probably better call it a halt. So this has been enormously fun just having a look at this. I have no idea how useful this is to people out there, but this is just a couple of old fools messing around on a synth. One person who knows what they're doing, the other person doesn't really. But I'll let you work out which is which of those two. Yeah, that's it. That's the Moog One. That's an extraordinary thing. You should probably go and get yourself a couple and stick it in your living room, so it's going to look beautiful as a piece of furniture.
It really is. The wood is nice. And also, I was going to say the black keys have this weird angle. They're really beautiful. It has the most beautiful black keys. There,
Yeah.
That's my endorsement.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Mark. So, the Moog One. There you go. Make of that what you will. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.